Hey traders, Raghee here. Welcome to another episode of Charts and Coffee. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Great to see you all. And let's just dive right into it. So a little housekeeping here today before we kick off all the Q&A. And I'll be doing the open here in the futures room in about 16, 17 minutes here. So we'll be taking a look at how this month of June is going to respond. If you checked out the free video from last week, I talked about maybe a little bit of a pullback that we could capitalize on to get long. So going into June, going into this summer, I'm quite bullish, at least through June. So, one thing I would definitely just sort of ditch is that old, I guess it sticks because it rhymes. Sell May and go away makes exactly 0 sense anymore. What we have to remember is take each month of summer one by one and not just this kind of nice little Dr. Seuss kind of rhyme that has sort of penetrated the psyche of traders and investors to lead them down a path that typically just is not necessarily true. It's just sort of the seasonality that maybe used to have some application, but it doesn't anymore. We want to be a whole lot more hands-on about the summer. And I'm quite optimistic about buys into pullbacks, at least at the early part of summer. All right, so that's one. So I'll be in the futures room at 9:20. And then we've got a longer session today in the options room. So I'll be with you all for 90 whopping minutes as we go into the close of this first day of June, which is going to be great. We could start scanning, rebuilding watch lists, and definitely those of you that are brand new to the Sector Secrets Mastery, we are going to be rebuilding our watch list. We have been already. Our book is pretty full, but there's a lot that I think could develop if we get that pullback that I'm looking for. All right, so happy Tuesday, everybody. Great to see you all. And let's see. I want to say hello. Okay, thank you very much. I do appreciate it, and I know a lot of you are back in the office, whether that be the work from home office, whether that be now commuting to the office. I love that we can record these and you guys can watch them at your leisure. And NVIDIA. Okay, let's get to NVIDIA. Am I interested in NVIDIA long? Not even a little bit. Nope. It's moved higher. Great. Everyone's looking at it to the long side. Was it a trend? What were the clues beforehand? So this is always going to be the question I will ask. Forget the candle now. Forget that candle. In the preceding 3, 4, 5 candles, what got your attention about a potential long? If the trade wasn't looking like a long at some point earlier, not the candle moving higher, there's no trade for me there. So I'm 0 interested in an NVIDIA long play. Not that it may not continue to move higher, but I'm certainly open to setups in trending markets, and I wouldn't put NVIDIA in that column. Do I have a set list of ETFs that I do. That's part of what we do in the Sector Secrets. We look at not just, first of all, it's got to be a liquid ETF. That's number one, because then we know it's got a better influence over the stocks that are within it. Number two, it's got to be sector ETFs that are going to benefit from either a technical trend. So what's the structure of the moving averages, giving us the likelihood of a trend, and or a macroeconomic trend. What are the macroeconomic factors that would have me look at, say, financials versus utilities versus software versus agriculture, and we prioritize in that way. So yes, that's a big part of what we do. Now it's not a static list. It's we're tweaking it all the time based on sector rotation, based on price movement. So it's a very alive thing, right? I don't think we're ever looking at the same names. So a lot of traders do. They find a bunch of tech stocks, they find momentum and high beta names that worked for them well the last 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 months. And that's the only place they look. And those are very, very dangerous blinders to have on. Your watch list has got to be a living, breathing thing. So terrific question. And the answer would be a resounding yes. WR asks, in the XLE, are KMI and VLO a setup buy? I love how you broke it down. Thank you for the question. So our KMI, I do like KMI, Kinder Morgan, Valero. Yeah, actually, both of these were on my my notebook, my watch list from last week. Let's see here. All right, might have even been the week before. But yes, I do like them very much. And I do like the energy narrative very much. And the more that it's neglected, meaning it's on the sort of psychological bottom end of the Ferris wheel, as we see that Ferris wheel always go round and round, I do like the idea of long positions in energy. And that would just really be tethered to the bullishness that I have in terms of the energy, meaning crude oil and RBOB, and even natural gas. So it's tethered very much to that narrative. So I do like them. Now, the part of it that we have to dive a little bit deeper. So that's a great look. By the way, that's the great beginning of a watch list. The other part of it, is broadening the search, casting a wider net. My fishermen out there know that. You got to cast a wide net. And so that's where, whether or not KMI and VLO are your relative outperforming, best of breed, however you want to look at it. I mean, part of it's also going to be proximity to the actual entry. Don't neglect, keep in mind the potential for the XLE to be a great way to play the tide and not the individual boats. All right. Do I like Microsoft in terms of what are my thoughts? John, almost zero. Microsoft crosses my mind almost zero. And it won't cross my mind until we have better clarity in XLK and QQQ. Remember, our attention is finite. Our discipline is finite. For most folks here, capital is finite. So to put my attention on things that are not relative outperformers, it's really important to just be able to look at a symbol and go, I'm not going to give you another thought again. Make symbols earn your attention, because where your attention goes, eventually so will your capital. So be very careful what gets to pull at your attention. PDD. Okay, cool. You want to see how the first fit? Yeah, I think if you're setting up a longer term setup with a short term entry, cool. Could this continue lower? Sure would seem like the path of least resistance. I'm with you there. All right, next up, can I share my thoughts on Chewy? So Chewy's kind of neat. Chewy's one of those names that is not necessarily tethered to a larger narrative. Chewy was one of those names that did really well in the work from home, which is really doing it an injustice because it's not a work from home stock per se, but it seemed to have benefited from that psychology. Chewy now, I just have very little, again, make something earn your attention. Now, I will say Chewy did form a 1, 2, 3. So if you are out there looking for a market that could begin to reverse, there's your 1, 2, 3 reversal right through there. So if you are looking at something like that, and I don't know if you can see that green really well, but if you're looking for something like that, let's see if it pops with a white any better. Maybe a little bit better. Pops that white. Oh, that's even better. There we go. So if you're looking for something like that, I think then sure. But again, it's a 1, 2, 3 reversal through this Darvis, and it's going to be a wave reversal, say through 77. So I'd be very careful here. Your initial break happened at 72.35, and you're really looking for a 77.05 as the next leg of this 1, 2, 3 classic Dow pattern reversal. Okay. So I think that would be an interesting potential reversal play there. All right. So next up is, let's see, Abraham says, it looks far and wide. Yeah, I don't make that available widely. I actually have a number of tools that are available, but I've been making them free to members. So if you're in the Sector Secrets room or if you're in the Futures room, it's absolutely free to members. I've had a number of my tools widely available, mostly the TOPS tools. So Wave, Grab, Darvis, Propulsion, but most of my more recent free tools that I make available are for members. And that's one of them where I share the code to put into Pine Editor on TradingView. You will not find it built within TradingView. Now you will find Wave, Grab, Darvis, Propulsion, all within TradingView and built into that platform. So thank you for the question. Let's see. Next up is questions. We have a lot of new Sector Secrets members. I'm looking really forward to meeting you all. Yes, you guys can check out what we're doing at Sector Secrets over at simpletrading.com/sector. A lot of new members that took advantage of the Memorial Day sale. So looking really forward to meeting you all tomorrow when we have our weekly Q&A. So that's terrific timing. Let's see, looking to go long OLN. You feel like you may have missed the opportunity, but mostly double green since last October. Love the, yeah, absolutely. I love where you're focused on the structure of the market. That's fantastic, Danny. You need a pullback. I agree. I'd say focus on two levels, 46.55 and potentially 45.25. Keep an eye on those two for a pullback. In fact, park an alert, park a limit order if you're looking at the underlying stock. But I don't think you've missed it per se, although it is kind of a mature trend at this point. But find out where OLN is hanging out. What do I mean by that? Find out where OLN is hanging out. What I mean by that is find out what sector or a group of stocks it's trading with, and find out if there aren't some other names that might give you an opportunity in this particular grouping. And if so, you might have more company, or you might have something that's been pulling back in a way that's been a little bit more conservative. But either way, keep an eye on it. I like where your attention is at for sure. Absolutely. So next up, looking for USB to make more upside. Well, I like banks. We're long financials, so I think we're definitely talking about the same group here. But do I like USB the most out of the individual stocks within the XLF? And that's really the question, isn't it? That's really what we spend so much time doing in Sector Secrets. So definitely pointed in a great direction. I love the direction you're in, 1X Cross. But what I would also say is that, take that next step into scanning that entire universe of the XLF heavily weighted names. Make sure USB is something that you do want to buy a pullback in because it's one of the better structured names. On face value, just looking at USB and USB alone, not any of that comparative analysis, I'd say, yeah, look for dip buys in USB. And specifically, what kind of dips are you looking for? You're looking for dips like we saw on the 19th, the 20th, and even the 25th and 26th was gorgeous. I mean, look at that dipping right into this volume ledge. Beautiful. Definitely keep an eye on it. All right, moving down the list here is, do I like short interest equities? So short interest on its own has to be gauged on a rate of change perspective. I think short interest is made entirely too much of without stepping back to see, well, is the short interest static? Has it been the same short interest for months? In which case, there's no timing element there, is there? Is there a pickup in the short interest? Has it reached a particular threshold? Then there's a timing element by way of the rate of change. If you're looking at a general group of stocks to narrow down this enormous sea of stocks that we look at in the US markets, then short interest could be a great way, depending on the percentage you're looking for, would be a great way to narrow a giant group down to a smaller group. Then you can go the next step, which is you've taken a giant list of names in the US stock market, looked for the short interest names, and then you said, all right, which ones have the structure to potentially either break out of a consolidation, continue the uptrend. So at some point, you're going to have to then take that next logical step, which is very simply, is short interest a setup? Not in my book, but short interest is a great environment from which to look for a setup. So BLNK in a non-trending market without a compression to expansion type setup, not that interested in. The more consolidated it is, the more interesting it is. WKHS, workhorse. Interesting in terms of the 1, 2, 3 setup that triggered through basically 920, and then I'm looking for another break through 1120. So that could be interesting. Again, we're overlapping a setup and this sort of environment of high short interest. And again, high short interest, everyone's going to have a different set of knobs they're going to put on their filter. What is high short interest to you? Is it a rate of change study? Is it a threshold? So there's a lot of variables here before you can say, okay, yes, it's a setup from a rate of change perspective. So the watch list is a high short interest watch list where we see the short interest maybe ticking up or at some sort of threshold. And there's a setup that's overlapping that very ripe environment. All right, so the next up is EXPE. All right, EXPE. Again, I can't reiterate enough. If you're looking at choppy markets, I'm probably not the person to ask about setups because, again, in this environment where we're not lacking for double green, high probability, and this is probably a great point and a great point to kind of wind up our conversation on because I'm going to be jumping into the futures room. Make your priority double green. Because anybody here who looked at the success they experienced in 2020, basically I'll bet dollars to donuts that the reason that your account grew was that you were focusing on a market that was in an uptrend. Uptrend, whether it's parabolic or just sort of a vanilla uptrend, is a double green environment. Go back and reverse engineer your success from 2020. I think most people can do that. It was a ridiculously easy trading year through most of it because it was just moving straight up. Whether your entries were well-timed or not, as long as you were long, the buy everything market served everyone really well. While this is not the buy everything market any longer, certain pockets of this market are, right? Certain pockets of this market are. So then our task as traders is to go find those pockets. EXPE for me, and probably for most people, is not going to be the kind of market that you saw a lot of success in 2020. So recreate, reverse engineer that environment, and then you'll find there's still plenty of 2021 sprinkled throughout the markets across multiple asset classes. It's not just everything, right? That's what made 2020 so wonderful. Everything was moving up. So with that being said, could EXPE potentially be a setup? Yes, it could be a 1, 2, 3 continuation at some point. It could be a momentum breakout. I'm not seeing either right now, and I'm definitely not seeing a double green, but it was. So definitely look to the long side, maybe use some volume ledges to better find where that attention is going to really, essentially in this case, blast off. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you as always for the questions, gang. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same station. Thanks as always for being part of the Charts and Coffee crew. Got the Valhalla Java rocking today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Be good to each other.